Oliver, we've seen a lot of change at the top of European investment banks or universal banks in Europe in recent months. Lots of new leaders coming in. Last weekend, we had John Crown at Deutsche setting out a bit of a reshuffle and fine-tuning the divisions there. Still no news, by the way, on any capital raise. But today we've had Tidjane Thiam, the new CEO at Credit Suisse, announcing all sorts of things, a capital raise, some plans, a bit of strategy. It's getting quite urgent because all the time the US investment banks are making hay and the European banks seem to be faffing around. What does the capital raise tell us?
Well, the capital raise tells us that Tidjane Thiam wants to get this capital question off the agenda once and for all. He's raising about 6 billion Swiss francs, and that'll take the Tier 1 capital ratio up from about 10% to about 12, so 2 percentage points. So from that point of view, it should do the trick. It will take it off the table. Although we should always be very wary of saying that the capital question is ever entirely off the table for banks. That capital is a movable feast. Regulators want ever more capital from the banks, and whereas 10% was widely seen as an acceptable number a couple of years ago, now investors are looking for 11 or 12%. And as Tidjane Thiam himself pointed out this morning, there is no discount on share prices for having too much capital, but there is a discount for having too little capital. So that's why he really wants to take this thing off the table.
Interesting, because all the time the Americans have settled the capital question or the leverage ratio question, and the Europeans are still fussing over it. But there's another interesting Tidjane Thiam-ism coming in here, in the sense that he wants to give greater priority to Asia-Pacific growth. And of course, he was big on that when he was CEO of Prudential. Tell me a little bit about that. Does that stack up for you?
It does, yes. I mean, this is an area that other wealth management and private banking firms have also addressed. UBS is very keen in Asia as well. It's not something novel, and it's not surprising that Tidjane is going for that. He's separated Asia Pacific out into a separate division. The other divisions will be Swiss banking, and also the investment bank will be its own division. So from that point of view, it's not surprising that he's really going heavily on Asia. But it's part of the bigger strategy. And particularly interesting part of that is the investment bank and what he does with that. It's still the biggest user of risk-weighted assets in the group. And he sees the investment bank as something that serves private banking and wealth management. The centre of the group is private banking and wealth management. Investment banking exists to serve that. The question is whether it can be profitable and make money on its own.
A little bit of an echo of Sergio Motti's actions at UBS then, but different, because as we know, UBS and Credit Suisse hate to be compared to each other. But moving on, what about this talk of setting up an independent Swiss bank? There's consolidation looming in the Swiss private banking market, but why else?
So rather than independent, what Tidjane Thiam is proposing here is that he will IPO part of the Swiss operation in the next couple of years. And there's a couple of reasons why he wants to do that. First, he thinks that the Swiss operations are undervalued in the share price, and if you list them, you have a market price for just the Swiss operations on their own. The other thing he says is there's going to be consolidation in the Swiss private banking market. The increase in regulation has made it uneconomic for smaller private banks and wealth managers to continue to operate. So he thinks Credit Suisse can be a consolidator, but to do that, he wants to be able to buy some of these banks using shares. And by partially listing the Swiss business, he'll have an acquisition currency to do that. I'm not sure it altogether stacks up. Credit
He's
Suisse
got
shares
one already.
Exactly, Credit Suisse shares already listed. I don't see why he needs to create a separate class of them.
Okay, Oliver. So it looks as though we're moving on lots of different fronts here. There's a Swiss activity going on, separately listed. There's capital, we hope, is a ticked box for now, and then there's the big Asia play, and that seems to be the one that all private banks or wealth managers are going for. Thank you very much indeed.